Hi guys, and welcome to Kids Church Mobile. Woo, woo, woo. It is Friday, one of my favorite days of the week. So we gave away our summer splash pack last week, and Graham was our winner. Congratulations to Graham! Woo! And so that's pretty exciting. He got all of our summer splash pack. Now my plan for the next one didn't work out. So this month, I haven't bought anything yet toward our next prize. But you know, guys, text me some of your favorite snacks and some ideas. I'm looking for fresh options. What do you like? What would you love to have in a prize pack? So text me today and make sure that you tell me that. When you're texting today, you guys probably know my number by now. Oh man, I always have to write this backwards for my camera, and I messed up on my 2. 352-789-4115. Now before you get like, oh my goodness, Miss Shannon doesn't know how to write a 2. Write it backwards. I have to write this so that it looks cool in a mirror. So if you think it's easy, try to write your name backwards in a way that works in a mirror. Hold it up to the mirror and you'll find out if you got it right. So just try it. It's a little harder than it looks. Just saying. All right. So text me your ideas. And I also want to let you guys know that we are going to be working on school supplies for you. We're working on them right now. So for those of you who need school supplies, we're hoping to have those delivered by August 19th. So just know that you've got a pack coming for you. For those of you who are on our normal van routes, we should set you guys up. And those of you who are like more of our Sunday crew, we'll set you guys up as well. So by August 19th, we should have a school supply pack in your hands. That is the goal. Woo woo. Cannot believe you're going back to school already. This summer has flown by. Are y'all anxious? You excited about school starting? Okay, so I hear some of you saying yes and others of you just moaning miserably. All right. Okay, well, it's coming soon, and we want to make sure that you are set up. All right? Okay, do you have your action Bibles? It's been a while since I promoted this, but hey guys, if you're watching today, we're reading on Kids Church Mobile. We read out of the Action Bible. Mine is a little bit torn up. Yeah, let's just say I have a lot of kids and dogs. So yeah, sometimes my stuff can take a hit. But I really encourage you, if you're watching, honestly, even if you're an adult viewer, we have a lot of adult viewers as well, I encourage you to pick up your own copy of the Action Bible. I've actually had adults say to me, I was reading the Action Bible with my kids that you gave us, and I'm starting to understand it better. The Action Bible is a great way. It's the whole Bible in comic strip. I mean, it's really, I love it. It's one of my favorite Bibles ever. And for kids, I think it's right on. So I encourage you, you can go to a site like christianbook.com as an example, and christianbook.com will set you up. I think I pay no more than $15 a piece for these. And let me just tell you too, that kiddos, if you lost yours, go find it. It's really valuable. If you've never had one of these before and you're a kid in our listening audience, text me at that number. Let me know you need an Action Bible of your own, and we'll do our best to set you up. And we try to give at least one free to every household. So they're a little spendy. $15 is not a lot unless you're buying a case of them. But I just really encourage you, even you adult listeners and viewers, check it out. It's actually a really cool Bible, and you can read along with us. What we read is really not just for kids. It's really for anybody. So check it out. Pretty cool. All right, today we're going to be going to page 463 in our Action Bible. And we're going to be finishing the story of Jeremiah. Now, Jeremiah, if you weren't listening with us last time, sometimes I kind of feel bad for Jeremiah. I think it's really awesome that God chose to speak through him. I think that's a really cool thing that Jeremiah gets to do. But God told him from the very beginning, people aren't going to listen to you. How frustrating to be like, God, I'm going to give your message and you've just put it burns in my heart. I just want to tell your people your message. And God's like, that's awesome. They're not going to listen to you, but say it anyway. Well, as we're going to find out in today's story, Jeremiah takes a lot of persecution because he chooses to speak God's message even when people don't want to hear it. Now, I'm going to have to explain one word to you before we start. It's the word yoke. Anybody know what a yoke is? Okay, you guys are all thinking about the egg and the yellow part inside we call the yolk, right? All right, that's spelled Y-O-L-K. I know, it's a silent L, kind of weird. That's not the kind of yolk we're talking about. Today we're talking about Y-O-K-E, a yoke, and it's like a big usually wooden thing in the older days that they would put over, like they would have like an ox or maybe 2 oxen together, and they would put that yoke on them, and that's what they would like tie the horses to, or I'm sorry, tie the plows to, or the wagons to these oxen or these horse. You could do it with a horse, and they would use that, and then they would pull them with that yoke. So it's kind of like a farm equipment, sort of, called a yoke. And so basically when someone has that yoke on them, the master controls where they go and what they do by pushing pressure on that yoke. So that's kind of, when you hear the word yoke today, that's kind of what we're talking about. All right? Okay, here we go. All right, so we are going to page 463, and the title of our lesson today is The Yoke's on Jeremiah. Only not the joke, the yoke. All right, here we go. Back in Jerusalem, King Zedekiah still rules, as long as he remains loyal to Nebuchadnezzar. For a few years, Zedekiah pays his tribute to Babylon. Then, in spite of Jeremiah's warnings, he begins to think about rebelling. He calls together the other foreign kings who are ruled by Babylon. What do we get from the money we pay to Babylon? We get peace. Peace, but not freedom. Maybe the Egyptians will join us. They hate Babylon too. When Jeremiah learns that there is talk of another revolt, he puts an ox yoke on his shoulders and bursts into the king's conference uninvited. Check out that big yoke thing. That's what we're talking about. King Zedekiah is like, "What are you doing?" Jeremiah says, "God has raised up Babylon for a purpose. Everything on earth, including the wild animals, will serve Babylon's king. If you try to throw off the yoke of Babylon, you will be crushed like leaves underfoot. Serve under the yoke of Babylon, and you will live. Any prophet who tells you otherwise is lying." Now, this is not a very popular message, but Jeremiah is telling the king and the people, he's like, "Listen, guys, we brought this on ourselves. This is discipline. And God's not for us. He's for the king of Babylon right now. He's using the king of Babylon to bring discipline to us because we've dishonored him. We've gone our own way. We've worshiped other gods. We need to accept our discipline and just live under Babylon's rule for our time of discipline." And the king does not want to hear it. But one of the prophets in attendance, now keep in mind, not all prophets are God's prophets. His name was Hananiah. Does not appreciate Jeremiah's interruption. "Oh, really? Because God told me exactly what to do with the yoke of Babylon. Break it." Okay, so there's this other guy. He says, "Nope, I'm a prophet too," but he's not really a prophet of God. Be careful. There's a lot of people who will say that they're speaking for God, and God hasn't spoken a word to them. And Hananiah is one of those people. And he takes that yoke that Jeremiah brought in and he crashes it. And Hananiah says, "I predict that in 2 years Babylon will be destroyed and we'll get all of our temple treasures back." Jeremiah's like, "That's great news. If only it were true. Unfortunately, you will be proven wrong. You may break a wooden yoke, but the yoke of Babylon is made of iron. God is tired of your lies in his name. You'll be dead within the year." Whew. Zedekiah knows Jeremiah is a true man of God, but he doesn't want to listen. Even when Hananiah dies a few months later, Zedekiah still does not want to believe Jeremiah. During all of this time, Egypt has kept an anxious eye on the growing tensions in Judah. At the right moment, Egypt sends an ambassador to King Zedekiah. "Babylon is your enemy as well as ours. Alone, neither of us can defeat them. But," and Zedekiah says, "together we can do it." So now he's got a partner in rebellion. Egypt says, "Hey, we don't like Babylon either. Work with us." As Jeremiah prophesied, Babylon answers this latest revolt with a swift attack. For weeks, the soldiers of Judah fight to defend Jerusalem's walls. See King Zedekiah there? He's like, "Where are the Egyptians? They promised they would come." Suddenly, the attack stops. "The Babylonians are breaking camp. They've given up the siege." He's like, we've won! Judah is free! What does God have to say now, huh? The people think they've won, but God has revealed the truth to Jeremiah. Jeremiah's like, no, the Babylons have not quit. They've gone to stop the Egyptians who were coming here to help us. They'll be back. And then you can see this guy in the corner. He's thinking, how does he know so much about what the Babylonians are doing? He's probably going to think that he's a traitor or a spy or something, because he's like, how would you know that? It wasn't like today where we have drones and satellites and TV equipment showing us what's going on in the world. So this guy's like, how does Jeremiah know? He doesn't realize that Jeremiah really does hear from God. A few days later, Jeremiah starts on a trip to his hometown a few miles from Jerusalem. Before he gets out of the gate, soldiers stop him. You're the one who prophesied that Babylon would conquer us. This is all your fault. Jeremiah's like, what? I've only spoken God's truth. And the other guy says, since you don't support us in the war, you're a traitor to Judah. Poor Jeremiah is getting called a traitor to his own country, and he's trying to save them. Man. In spite of his innocence, Jeremiah is thrown into prison. Within a few weeks, the Babylonians defeat the Egyptians and return to the gates of Jerusalem. Jeremiah's enemies bring him before the king and accuse him of being a traitor. I repeat the warning that God gave me. Invaders from the north will conquer Judah. God chose the Babylonians to destroy our nation because of the sins of our people. And then this guy's talking to King Zedekiah. He's like, it's this kind of talk that makes our soldiers lose courage. Put this traitor to death or the city will fall. And Zedekiah says to the guy, he's like, he's in your hands. Do what you want with him. Quickly, before the king can change his mind, Jeremiah's accusers put him in an old empty well beneath the prison floor. Let him starve to death. Ugh, I don't like that guy at all. Ugh. All right, here we go. The old well doesn't have water in it anymore, but it does still have mud and slime. You guys think slime is pretty cool when you're like, put your glitter in it and play with it, but it wouldn't be nice to be sunk down into it with no escape. Jeremiah gags to be trapped in such filth and wonders how long he can survive. But Ebed-Melech, fancy name, a servant in the palace, gets permission from the king to put Jeremiah in the prison yard. He basically goes and says, listen, king, he's going to die in there, and you don't want the blood of a prophet on your hands. And so the king allows him to go. So Jeremiah comes out nasty and muddy and filthy and in huge need of a shower. He says, thank God for your help. I would have died in that awful hole. As the siege continues, because remember, the king of Babylon came back. As the siege continues, people in Jerusalem are starving and begging for food. At last, the frightened king calls for Jeremiah. What will happen to us? Because remember, he knows that Jeremiah is a true prophet of God. He just doesn't want to do what God's telling him to do. Jeremiah says, it's simple. If you surrender, Jerusalem will be saved. If you don't, it will be burned, and the Babylonians will torture and kill you. Whew, that's a hard message to hear. And King Zedekiah says, surrender? I don't dare. My own people would turn against me. And Jeremiah says, you should be more concerned that God has turned against you. Zedekiah is unhappy with this answer. He keeps Jeremiah under house arrest. The siege goes on, but after 30 more months, we're talking like 3 years, Jerusalem falls. Name of our next story. For 2.5 years, forces from the great Babylonian army attack the city of Jerusalem. At last, they break through the wall. As Babylonian soldiers pour through the broken walls, King Zedekiah tries to escape with his family. The Babylonians capture Zedekiah before he can reach the river. They put out his eyes and bring him to the captain of the guard. You know what, guys? The Action Bible is going to spare you something that I'm going to go ahead and tell you. It's actually really, really, it just hurts my heart, because if you would have listened to God and just surrendered, then it would have been okay. But you know what? They do put out his eyes. They gouge out his eyes. But before they gouge out his eyes, the last things they let him see is they killed all of his sons in front of him. and then they put out his eyes. The last thing he would see. That's cruel. So Nebuchadnezzar says, since you couldn't see your duty to King Nebuchadnezzar, oh, I'm sorry, that must be one of his, like, workers. Now you will see nothing ever again. Now it's kind of interesting. King Nebuchadnezzar has heard of Jeremiah's prophecies all the way from Babylon. His captain has special instructions. Jeremiah, we know that you are faithful to your God. Because you try to keep your country from rebelling against us, you are free. Go wherever you want, live wherever you want. If you come back with me to Babylon, I will make sure that you have wealth and comfort the rest of your life. Jeremiah says, thank you, but no. I must stay here to help God's people who have been left in Israel without a leader. See, Nebuchadnezzar took most of them off to Babylon or killed them, but he left a few still in Jerusalem. A lot of the poor, maybe still working some fields or something. And so Jeremiah's like, no, I'm going to stay here with the tiny few that are left. Then the Babylonians stripped the silver, gold, and valuable objects from the temple and palace buildings. Here's the captain again. Set fire to every corner of the city. Don't let anything survive that would give anyone any ideas about rebuilding Jerusalem. For days the fire rages until all that is left of the beautiful city of Jerusalem is a heap of ashes and blackened stones. Now we're actually going to skip the next page, but it's from a book that Jeremiah wrote called Lamentations, and he just wrote like a whole bunch of poetry about how sad he was about the city falling. All right, so let's go on. Let's skip on to page 469. The Babylonians set up headquarters at Mizpah, it's a fancy name for a town, and appoint Gedaliah as governor. Gedaliah has always been faithful to the Lord and believed the words of Jeremiah. Pleased to have a godly governor, Jeremiah joins him and becomes his advisor. Together we'll encourage the people to build up their homes and to replant their vineyards and fields. Then Jeremiah says, someday the captives will return. Judah will become a nation again. But good news is always temporary for Jeremiah. Before the governor's dream can come true, he is murdered, assassinated. Fearful that Babylon will blame all of Israel for the murder, a group of people go to see Jeremiah. We want to go to Egypt where there is peace and plenty to eat. Will you ask the Lord if that's okay? So they're like, you know what, we're going to get in trouble because this governor got assassinated. Even though we didn't do it, we're going to get in trouble. So would you pray to God and ask him if it's okay? Can we just go hide in Egypt? So Jeremiah says, the Lord has warned me that you will find neither peace nor food in Egypt. Stay here. The Babylonians will not hurt you. Now, they still aren't listening. The guy says, God hasn't done such a good job keeping us safe in Jerusalem. We're going to Egypt. Jeremiah's like, even after everything that's happened, you still don't believe in God's word? You just hoped I'd give you permission for what you already decided to do. But the people do not care. They flee to Egypt and they force Jeremiah to go with them. They think that they will be safe, but Nebuchadnezzar conquers Egypt next, killing everyone who fled from Jerusalem. The future hope for God's people now lies with the exiles in Babylon. And you know what, guys? I'm actually really excited about these next stories. They're some of my favorite stories in the whole Bible. So I want you to think about these exiles. These are ones who were taken away from Judah, basically kidnapped. A lot of them probably saw their parents killed, and they were taken as kids into Babylon. And Babylon is like, okay, let's take these kids from these other countries. We're going to take the really smart and handsome and educated ones, and we're going to raise them up so they can be officials in the Babylonian army. So in the next stories, we're going to read about the ones who were taken away from Judah. Sad thing is they're hearing probably about how their own nation has been destroyed. All right, guys, it is time, and my paper flew off. You know what? Just a sec. It's okay. It didn't fly far. All right. So today, make sure that you text me to let me know you're watching. Now you can see that the wetness from the grass messed up my number a little bit. 789-4115. And your special word of the day is pot. I'm talking about like You can see a picture of a pot right there. The word of the day is pot. Now the next 2 days, or the next 2 viewings, we're gonna have 2 more words. And if somebody can figure out after the 3rd word, if you can remember pot, that's the only day I'm gonna tell you this word. And then Monday I'll tell you another word, Wednesday I'll tell you another word. And if you can put those 3 words together and send me a picture of what you find, and if it's the right picture that I'm looking for, I'll get you a pack of gum. All right, I'm kind of hooked on this like Starburst gum right now. It's really got a good taste and lasts a long time. You know, I should like charge for commercials because that's really good gum, and I just like gave them some serious props. All right, so the word for the day is pot. Phone number 352-789-4115. Give me a call or a text and let me know that you watched. If you type the word pot, I will know that you watched today's episode. All right, I love you guys much, and I will see you back again on Monday. Blessings.